Admiral Kethavar stared at the blue planet on his viewing screen. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the strange world floating in space. The planet looked so peaceful and calm. White clouds moved slowly across green and brown land masses. Large oceans covered most of the surface. "Report," he said to his science officer. Lieutenant Zextal checked his instruments. His scaled hands moved quickly over the control panel. "The planet shows signs of intelligent life, Admiral. The beings call themselves humans. They live on the 3rd planet from their star." Kethavar nodded. His heavy armor made a soft clicking sound as he moved. All Zephyrians wore thick metal plates to protect their bodies. It was the way of their people. "What do we know about these humans?" "They are very different from us, sir." Zextal pulled up images on the main screen. "Look at them. They have soft skin with no natural armor. They are much smaller than us. Most of them stand only 6 feet tall. The images showed creatures that looked almost fragile. They had thin skin in different colors. Some had fur only on top of their heads. They wore cloth coverings instead of proper armor. Kethavar thought they looked very weak. "Watch this recording, Admiral," Zextal said. The screen showed humans doing strange things. Some humans were playing with small 4-legged animals. They threw round objects and the animals ran to bring them back. The humans seemed very happy about this simple game. Other humans were sitting together eating food and making loud sounds with their mouths. The science officer said they called it laughing. "Fascinating," said Kethavar. "They seemed to enjoy very simple pleasures." More images appeared. Humans were creating colorful pictures on flat surfaces. Others were making sounds with strange instruments. Some were building small shelters that looked comfortable but not very strong. Children ran around playing games that had no clear purpose. They spend much time caring for creatures that serve no military function, Zextal noted. They keep small animals in their homes just for companionship. They give these animals names and talk to them as if they were intelligent. Kethavar found this very strange. In Zephyrian society, every creature had a purpose. Animals were for food, work, or war. The idea of keeping animals just for friendship seemed silly. "What about their military strength?" Kethavar asked. "Very limited, sir." Zextal showed new images. "They have some ships that travel in space, but they are small and simple. Their weapons appear to be basic projectile launchers and energy beams. Nothing that could threaten our fleet. The human ships looked like metal boxes with engines attached. They had no visible armor plating. No plasma cannons or quantum torpedoes. Kethavar had seen stronger weapons on Zephyrian cargo ships. Their ground forces are equally weak," Zextal continued. "They use simple vehicles and carry small weapons. Most of their soldiers have the same soft skin as all humans. No natural protection at all." Kethavar studied the tactical reports. Human armies looked like they would break apart quickly in real combat. Their vehicles were fast but thin. Their weapons were accurate but not very powerful. Everything about them suggested a species that had never faced serious military challenges. "Sir, there is something else," Zextal said. "They seem to have strong feelings about avoiding violence. We detected many communications where they talk about preventing wars and helping others." This made Kethavar even more certain that humans were harmless. A species that disliked fighting would never be a real threat. The Zephyrians had conquered dozens of worlds. They knew how to recognize dangerous enemies. Humans clearly were not dangerous. They have something they call the United Nations, Zextal explained. It appears to be a group where different human nations try to solve problems with words instead of weapons. Kethavar made a sound that was the Zephyrian version of laughter. "They try to solve conflicts by talking? How wonderfully naive." The more he learned about humans, the more charming they seemed. They were like children playing at being adults. They built pretty cities instead of fortresses. They spent time making art instead of weapons. They cared more about comfort than defense. "Admiral," said Communications Officer Verthak, "we have been monitoring their entertainment broadcasts. They create fictional stories where they always try to avoid killing their enemies. Even when fighting, they seem more interested in protecting innocents than winning battles." This confirmed everything Kethavar believed. Humans were too soft for real warfare. They would make excellent subjects for the Zephyrian Confederation. They could provide labor and resources while the Zephyrians provided protection and proper leadership. "Sir, I have analyzed their technology," reported Chief Engineer Malden. "Their computers are impressive for such a primitive species. Their medical knowledge is surprisingly advanced. They seem very good at healing injuries and curing diseases." "But nothing military?" Kethavar asked. "Nothing significant, sir. Their most powerful weapons could barely damage our ship's secondary armor. Their shields are weak. Their engines are slow compared to ours. Kethvar made his decision. Prepare the standard annexation fleet. 300 ships should be more than enough. He paused to think. Actually, that might be too many. We do not want to frighten them unnecessarily, sir. Ferthak looked confused. These humans seem like gentle creatures. We should approach them carefully. Show them that joining the Confederation will benefit them. They can keep their art and their pet animals. We will provide real security and proper leadership. The bridge crew agreed. They had all seen the reports. Humans were clearly a species that needed protection. Left alone, they would probably destroy themselves with their naive approach to conflict resolution. The Zephyrians would save them from their own weakness. Begin preparation for peaceful integration, Kethvar ordered. Standard Class C civilization protocols. Minimal force, maximum diplomacy. Class C civilizations were the easiest to integrate. They were usually grateful for Zephyrian protection once they understood the benefits. Some even volunteered to join the Confederation without any military pressure at all. Admiral, Sextol said, shall I prepare cultural integration materials? The humans seem to value their art and music highly. Yes, good thinking. Let them keep their hobbies. Happy subjects are productive subjects. Kethvar felt satisfied with his analysis. The humans would probably be relieved to have proper protection. Their soft nature and peaceful instincts made them perfect candidates for Confederation membership. Within a few months, they would understand how much better their lives could be under Zephyrian guidance. Set course for their system, he commanded. Send word to High Command that we have found another species ready for integration. Estimated resistance, minimal. Estimated integration time, 30 standard days. As the Zephyrian fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Kethvar looked one more time at the images of humans playing with their pets and creating their art. Such innocent creatures deserved protection from the harsh realities of the galaxy. The Zephyrians would provide that protection, whether the humans asked for it or not. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying 300 warships toward Earth. Kethvar was certain this would be one of the easiest annexations in Confederation history. After all, what could such adorable creatures possibly do against the might of the Zephyrian military? The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the human solar system. 300 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation. Each ship bristled with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. The sight should have been enough to make any civilized species surrender immediately. Admiral Kethvar stood on his command bridge and looked at the small blue planet in the distance. It looked even more peaceful from this close range. He could see the lights of human cities on the dark side of their world. Everything seemed so quiet and calm. Open communication channels, he ordered. Broadcast the standard annexation message. Communications Officer Verthak activated the transmission array. His voice carried across space to every human receiver. Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Confederation. Your system is now under Confederation protection. Please prepare to receive our integration teams. The message was polite but firm. It explained how the Confederation worked. Local species kept their culture and customs. In exchange, they provided resources and followed Confederation laws. Most species found the arrangement beneficial. Kethvar expected a quick response. Usually, primitive species either surrendered immediately or asked for time to consider the offer. He did not expect what actually happened. The human response came within minutes. A calm voice spoke in clear, simple language. Admiral Kethvar, this is Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Nations. We appreciate your interest in our system. We would like to arrange a diplomatic meeting to discuss your proposals. Kethvar blinked his 4 eyes. The human sounded completely calm. Most species showed fear or confusion when first contacted by the Confederation. This Secretary General Santos spoke as if she dealt with alien fleets every day. She wants to negotiate? Asked Lieutenant Zextol. Apparently. Kethvar found this amusing. Very well. Set up a meeting. Let them think they have some control over the situation. The humans suggested meeting on a space station orbiting their 4th planet. They called it Mars Station Alpha. The station looked small and simple from the outside. Just a collection of metal cylinders connected by tubes. Nothing impressive. Kethvar took a small escort ship to the meeting. He brought his best diplomatic team. They were experts at explaining the benefits of Confederation membership to new species. Usually it only took a few hours to reach an agreement. The docking bay of the human station surprised him. It was larger than it looked from outside. Somehow the humans had built more space inside than should have been possible. The artificial gravity felt perfect. The air was clean and fresh. Temperature and humidity were exactly comfortable. Impossible, muttered Engineer Maldun. The energy requirements for this environmental control should be enormous. But I detect no large power source. 3 humans waited to greet them. Secretary General Santos was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore simple clothes with no armor or weapons. Next to her stood Ambassador Chen, a tall man with a gentle smile. The 3rd human introduced himself as Dr. Patel, their science advisor. "Welcome to Mars Station Alpha," Santos said. "We hope your journey was comfortable." The humans showed them to a meeting room that was somehow both simple and elegant. Soft lighting came from sources Kethavar could not identify. The chairs adjusted automatically to fit each visitor's body shape. On the table sat cups of steaming liquid and plates of small food items. "We brought some refreshments," Santos explained. "This is coffee and tea, 2 beverages we enjoy. The food represents different human cultures. Please try anything that interests you." Kethavar tasted the coffee. It was bitter but somehow pleasant. The food was strange but not unpleasant. He noticed that his diplomatic team seemed relaxed and comfortable. The humans had created an atmosphere that made visitors feel welcome. "Now then," Santos said, settling into her chair, "we understand you represent something called the Zephyrian Confederation. Please tell us about your organization." For the next hour, Kethavar explained how the Confederation worked. He talked about the benefits of membership: protection from hostile species, access to advanced technology, trade opportunities with hundreds of worlds. The humans listened politely. They asked intelligent questions. They seemed genuinely interested in learning about Zephyrian culture and history. But they did not seem impressed by the military power of the Confederation. "Your offer is interesting," Santos said finally, "but we must respectfully decline membership at this time." Kethavar was shocked. No species had ever simply declined Confederation membership. "Perhaps you do not understand the benefits," he said. "Your world would be much safer under our protection." "We appreciate your concern for our safety," Ambassador Chen replied. "But humans prefer to manage their own affairs. We would be happy to establish trade relations and cultural exchanges instead." Dr. Patel activated a small device. Images appeared in the air above the table. "We prepared some information about human culture to share with you. These are recordings of our music, art, and literature. The images showed humans creating beautiful things. Musicians playing instruments that produced complex emotional sounds. Artists painting pictures that somehow captured feelings as well as images. Writers telling stories that made listeners feel joy, sadness, fear, and hope. Humans spend much time on creative expression," Dr. Patel explained. "We believe art and music help us understand each other better." Kethavar found the presentations impressive but irrelevant. "These are pleasant hobbies," he said. "But what about serious matters? Defense, resource management, interstellar politics? We handle those as well," Santos replied. "But we prefer diplomatic solutions when possible." The meeting continued for several more hours. The humans were polite but firm. They clearly had no intention of accepting Confederation membership. They kept suggesting alternatives like trade agreements and scientific cooperation. What disturbed Kethavar most was how confident the humans seemed. They showed no fear of his fleet. They acted as if 300 Zephyrian warships were just a minor inconvenience. "Secretary General Santos," he said finally, "I think you do not fully understand your situation. My fleet carries enough firepower to level your cities. Your military cannot possibly resist us." Santos nodded calmly. "We understand your capabilities, Admiral. We also understand our own." She paused to sip her tea. "We strongly recommend that you accept our offer of peaceful trade relations and depart our system without hostilities." "And if we refuse?" Kethavar asked. "Then we will be forced to defend ourselves," Chen said quietly. "We really hope it does not come to that." The way the humans spoke was strange. They sounded genuinely sad about the possibility of conflict, but they also sounded completely certain they could handle whatever the Confederation might do. As the meeting ended, Dr. Patel gave each Zephyrian visitor a small gift. They were simple items: a piece of human music stored on a crystal, a small sculpture, a book of human poetry translated into Zephyrian language. "We hope you will remember that humans value peace," Dr. Patel said. "But we also hope you will remember that we are not helpless." Back on his flagship, Kethvar reviewed what had happened. The humans had been polite and friendly. They had shared their culture and offered alternatives to military conquest. But they had also refused to surrender. "Admiral," reported Chief Engineer Muldoon, "I analyzed their station while we were aboard. The technology is impossible. Their power systems are more advanced than anything in Confederation space. Their material should not exist according to our science. But they seemed so primitive from our long-range scans," Zextol protested. "Either our sensors are completely wrong," Muldoon replied, "or the humans are much more advanced than they appear." Kethvar considered this information. But he had his orders from High Command. The Confederation did not accept refusal from primitive species. If the humans would not join willingly, they would be forced to join. "Prepare for standard intimidation protocol," he ordered. "Select a target that will demonstrate our power without causing major casualties. We need to show them the futility of resistance." His tactical officer highlighted a small asteroid mining facility on the edge of the human system. It appeared to have minimal defenses and a small crew. A quick strike would prove Confederation superiority without causing a massacre. "Send one final message to the humans," Kethvar commanded. "They have 72 hours to reconsider our generous offer. After that, we will be forced to demonstrate the consequences of refusing Confederation protection." The human response to Kethvar's ultimatum arrived exactly 1 hour later. Secretary General Santos appeared on the communication screen again. She looked tired, but determined. "Admiral Kethvar," she said, "we have carefully considered your offer. Our answer remains the same. We decline membership in your confederation." She paused, and her expression became very serious. "We strongly advise against any hostile action within our solar system, for your own safety and the safety of your crews." Kethvar stared at the screen after the transmission ended. The human had warned him about his own safety. A species with soft skin and primitive weapons was telling the mighty Zephyrian Confederation to be careful. "Did she just threaten us?" asked Lieutenant Zextol. "I believe she tried to," Kethvar replied. "How amusing." The warning made no sense. Kethvar's sensors showed the same information as before. Human ships were small and lightly armed. Their space stations had no visible weapons. Their military appeared designed for defending against other humans, not fighting advanced alien civilizations. "Admiral," reported Tactical Officer Gorwell, "I have identified the target for our demonstration. Mining facility designation Charlie 7 on asteroid 2087 Hermes. Current population 43 humans. Minimal defensive systems detected." Kethvar studied the tactical display. The mining facility looked exactly like what it claimed to be. Industrial equipment for extracting metals from the asteroid, simple habitat modules for the workers, a few small ships for transportation. No weapons, no shields, no military installations. Perfect, Kethvar decided. Send Strike Group Beta to disable the facility. Capture the workers if possible. We will show the humans what happens when they refuse Confederation protection. Strike Group Beta consisted of 60 heavy cruisers. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small city. Against a mining facility, they represented massive overkill. But that was the point. The humans needed to understand the futility of resistance. Captain Drexitar commanded Strike Group Beta from his flagship, the Relentless. He was a veteran officer who had participated in dozens of annexation campaigns. He expected this operation to be routine. "Target acquired," reported his weapons officer. "No defensive systems detected. No military vessels in the area." Through his view screen, Drextar could see the human mining facility. It looked completely peaceful. Industrial robots moved slowly across the asteroid surface. Human workers in protective suits operated heavy machinery. Nobody seemed to notice the approaching Zephyrian fleet. "This is Captain Drextar of the Zephyrian Confederation," he broadcast on standard communication frequencies. "You are ordered to surrender immediately. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The response came from someone who identified himself as Facility Manager Jackson. He sounded confused and worried. "Captain, this is a civilian mining operation. We have no military capabilities. What do you want from us? Surrender your facility and prepare to be taken into custody, Drextar replied. You will not be harmed if you cooperate. Sir, we have families here, Manager Jackson said, including children. Please, we are not soldiers. We are just miners. Drextar felt a moment of sympathy. The humans really did seem helpless. But orders were orders. You have 5 minutes to evacuate non-essential personnel. Then we will board your facility. What happened next would be discussed in Zephyrian military academies for generations. Manager Jackson's voice changed completely. The confused worry disappeared. Now he sounded calm and professional. Captain Drextar, you have been warned to leave human space. This is your final opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Are you threatening me? Drextar asked, amazed by the human's audacity. No, sir, Jackson replied. I am informing you that you are about to make a very serious mistake. Drextar decided to end this conversation with action. All ships, begin attack pattern Alpha. Disable their equipment and prepare boarding parties. His fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 60 warships against a handful of miners on an asteroid. It should have been the easiest victory in Confederation history. Then the mining equipment started moving. Large excavation machines that had been slowly digging ore suddenly spun around with impossible speed. Their industrial cutting lasers focused on the approaching Zephyrian ships, but these were not simple mining lasers anymore. The beams that lanced out were blindingly bright and incredibly focused. The first Zephyrian ship to be hit was the destroyer Swift Death. The mining laser punched through its shields like they were made of paper. The beam carved through the ship's armor and struck its main reactor. Swift Death exploded in a ball of plasma. Impossible, Drextar shouted. Industrial equipment cannot penetrate military shields. More mining machines revealed hidden capabilities. Ore haulers opened compartments that contained missiles. Not primitive human missiles, but weapons that moved at speeds no Zephyrian sensor could track. The missiles struck with devastating accuracy. Rock crushers deployed from underground positions. They fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Each impact created explosions that crippled Zephyrian cruisers. Worst of all were the humans themselves. The confused miners had vanished. In their place stood soldiers who moved with deadly precision. They wore armor that made them look like mechanical demons. Their weapons fired beams that could slice through Zephyrian battle armor like cutting through cloth. Sir, screamed his communications officer, they have boarding pods. The humans are launching some kind of assault craft. Drextar watched in horror as sleek human vehicles attached themselves to his ships. Within minutes, the humans had cut through hull plating and entered his vessels. His crew reported hand-to-hand combat in the corridors, but this was not normal combat. The humans fought with terrifying efficiency. They seemed to know exactly where every Zephyrian would be. They moved through the ships like they had studied the blueprints for years. Captain, called his security chief over the communicator. The humans are not trying to kill us. They are using some kind of stunning weapons. They are capturing our people. This was somehow worse than if the humans had simply killed his crews. It meant they were so confident in their abilities that they could afford to be merciful. Within 30 minutes, Strike Group Beta was destroyed. Only 12 ships remained functional, and they were heavily damaged. The humans had captured over 2,000 Zephyrian personnel. Not a single human had been killed. This is Manager Jackson, came the voice from the mining facility. He sounded tired but not angry. Captain Drextar, your surviving crews will receive full medical attention. We will arrange for their return to your fleet when this situation is resolved. Drextar stared at his tactical display. 48 Zephyrian warships destroyed or disabled. 2,000 soldiers captured. His remaining ships were barely able to move. How? He whispered. Sir, his science officer said quietly, our sensors are detecting massive energy sources throughout this asteroid. The mining facility was. It was not what it appeared to be. What was it? I believe it was a military installation disguised as a civilian facility. The humans have technology we do not understand. Drextar sent an emergency message back to Admiral Kethvar. The message was simple. Mission failed. Requesting immediate reinforcement. The humans are not what they appear to be. Back on the main Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Kethvar received the message with disbelief. His best strike group had been destroyed by miners. It was impossible. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Verthak, "we are receiving another transmission from the humans." Secretary General Santos appeared on screen again. She looked genuinely sad. "Admiral Kethvar, we regret the loss of life that has occurred. Your personnel who were captured are receiving excellent medical care. We are prepared to return them to you unharmed." "What do you want?" Kethvar asked. "We want you to leave our solar system and never return," Santos replied. "We have no desire for war with your people, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." "This is not over," Kethvar said. "You have attacked Confederation forces. That act of war cannot be ignored." Santos nodded sadly. "We hoped it would not come to this. But you were warned, Admiral. You were warned." The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar staring at a blank screen. His comfortable assumptions about human weakness had just been shattered. Now he had to decide whether to retreat or escalate the conflict. He looked at his tactical display. 240 ships still remained under his command. Surely that was enough to handle whatever tricks the humans might have. Admiral Kethvar made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He called for reinforcements. The emergency signal from Admiral Kethvar reached Zephyrian High Command within hours. Supreme Commander Veltash read the report 3 times before believing it. A single human mining facility had destroyed 48 Confederation warships. Either Kethvar had suffered a complete mental breakdown, or the intelligence reports about human capabilities were catastrophically wrong. "Prepare the Second Fleet for immediate deployment," Veltash ordered. 800 ships. I want our most experienced commanders and our newest technology. The Second Fleet represented nearly half of the Confederation's total military strength. It included massive dreadnoughts that could destroy entire cities with a single volley, battle carriers that launched swarms of fighter craft, ships equipped with weapons that could crack open planetary surfaces. While the Second Fleet prepared for deployment, something else was happening throughout human space. The attack on mining facility Charlie 7 had triggered what humans called Condition Red. This was a military alert status that the Zephyrians had not known existed. Across hundreds of human worlds, the true nature of their civilization began to reveal itself. Those peaceful space stations suddenly bristled with weapon systems that emerged from hidden compartments. Industrial facilities reconfigured themselves into massive shipyards. Civilian cargo ships activated military systems that had been concealed inside their hulls. On Earth, 12 billion humans went about their daily lives while their planet transformed into a fortress. The orbital installations that had looked like simple research stations revealed themselves as heavily armed battle platforms. The moon itself opened massive doors to release fleets of warships that had been hidden in underground hangars. Admiral Kethvar watched this transformation with growing horror. His long-range sensors detected energy signatures that violated everything he knew about physics. Human ships moved at speeds that should have been impossible. Their weapons generated power outputs that should have required entire stars to fuel. "Sir," reported Chief Engineer Muldoon, his voice shaking, "I am detecting over 50,000 human vessels moving throughout this system." 50,000, Admiral. "That cannot be correct," Kethvar replied. "Our intelligence reports indicated they had perhaps a few hundred ships total." "The intelligence reports were wrong, sir. Very wrong." Communications Officer Verthak turned from his station with a pale face. "Admiral, we are receiving signals from human colonies throughout this region of space. There are not just billions of humans on their homeworld. There are over 50 billion humans spread across hundreds of systems. The scale of human civilization was staggering. What the Zephyrians had mistaken for a single primitive world was actually the center of an interstellar empire that dwarfed the Confederation in size and population. "How did we not know about this?" Kethvar demanded. "They hid it from us," Muldoon replied. "Everything we saw was carefully designed to make us underestimate them. The humans wanted us to think they were weak and primitive. The arrival of the Second Fleet should have been an overwhelming show of force. 800 Zephyrian warships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The largest military fleet the Confederation had ever assembled. But the humans were ready for them. The human response fleet emerged from behind the gas giant Jupiter like a steel sunrise. Ships that made Zephyrian dreadnoughts look like toys, vessels so large they generated their own gravity fields. The human flagship alone was bigger than a Zephyrian space station. Supreme Commander Veltash had come personally to lead the Second Fleet. He stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the human armada with disbelief. Each human ship looked like it could destroy his entire fleet single-handedly. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "the human ships are broadcasting identification signals. What are their names?" "The flagship is called Diplomatic Solution, sir. Others include Peaceful Resolution, Measured Response, and Last Resort." Even their ship names were a message. The humans were telling the Zephyrians that this was diplomacy by other means. "Open a communication channel," Veltash ordered. Perhaps there was still time to avoid disaster. The human who appeared on his screen was not Secretary General Santos. This was a military officer wearing a crisp uniform covered with rank insignia. She looked professional and completely calm. "Supreme Commander Veltash," she said, somehow knowing his identity. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Force. We need to talk." "Admiral Chen," Veltash replied, "I am here to resolve the situation created by your unprovoked attack on Confederation forces." Chen's expression did not change. "Supreme Commander, your forces attacked a civilian facility after being repeatedly warned to leave our territory. We defended ourselves. That is not an unprovoked attack. Your mining facility destroyed 48 military vessels. Your military vessels attacked a facility staffed by families with children," Chen replied coldly. "What did you expect would happen?" The conversation continued for an hour. Admiral Chen was polite but firm. She explained that humans had been aware of the Zephyrian Confederation for decades. They had watched Confederation expansion and decided they wanted no part of it. "We tried to appear harmless so you would leave us alone," Chen explained. "We hoped you would find easier targets elsewhere. We never wanted this conflict." "But you prepared for it," Veltash observed. "We prepared for the possibility," Chen agreed. "Humans have a saying, hope for peace but prepare for war. We hoped for peace. And now? Now you have brought war to our territory. We will respond accordingly." Admiral Chen made a gesture and her tactical display activated. It showed the deployment of human forces throughout the solar system. The numbers were staggering. Over 1,000 major warships, tens of thousands of smaller vessels, orbital platforms armed with weapons that could sterilize planets. "This is just one system, Supreme Commander," Chen said quietly. "We have defensive fleets in 300 systems, and all of them are now on full alert." The implications hit Veltash like a physical blow. The Confederation was facing an enemy that outnumbered them by a factor of at least 10 to 1. An enemy with technology that made Confederation science look primitive. "What do you propose?" he asked. "Leave," Chen replied simply. "Take your fleets and leave human space. Never return. We will release your captured personnel unharmed and provide medical assistance to your damaged ships. And if we refuse?" Admiral Chen's expression remained completely professional. "Then we will defend ourselves with all necessary force." The battle that followed would be remembered as the shortest major engagement in galactic history. It lasted exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds. The human ships moved with precision that seemed impossible. They coordinated their actions like parts of a single enormous organism. Their weapons struck with accuracy that made random chance seem more likely than missing. But what shocked Veltash most was how carefully the humans fought. They disabled Zephyrian ships instead of destroying them. They targeted weapon systems and engines while leaving life support intact. When Zephyrian escape pods ejected from damaged ships, human rescue vessels immediately moved to collect the survivors. The Confederation fleet was systematically dismantled. Not destroyed, but rendered completely helpless. Within 15 minutes, 800 of the most powerful warships in Zephyrian space were drifting dead in space. Their crews alive, but their ships useless. "Cease fire," Admiral Chen broadcast. "All Confederation vessels are disabled. Beginning rescue operations." Veltash found himself aboard a human rescue ship, being treated for injuries by human medical personnel. The irony was overwhelming. The species he had come to conquer was now saving his life. The human doctor treating him was a young woman with gentle hands and kind eyes. She worked carefully to repair his damaged armor and treat his wounds. "Why?" he asked her. "Why did you not kill us?" She looked up from her work with surprise. Because killing you would serve no purpose. You are defeated. We have no reason to murder helpless enemies. But we came to conquer your people? Yes, she agreed. That was a mistake. But making mistakes does not deserve death. Over the next few days, as human medical teams treated thousands of wounded Zephyrian personnel, Veltash began to understand the fundamental error his people had made. They had mistaken human kindness for weakness. They had assumed that a gentle species could not also be deadly. The truth was exactly the opposite. Humans were dangerous precisely because they could choose to be gentle. They had the power to destroy their enemies completely, but they preferred to show mercy. This was not weakness. This was strength beyond anything the Confederation had ever encountered. Admiral Chen, Veltash said during one of their conversations, "How long have your people been capable of this level of warfare?" "Centuries," she replied. "We learned early in our history that survival sometimes requires terrible choices. We became very good at war so that we could choose when not to fight. And you chose not to fight until we forced you. We always prefer other solutions, but we will defend ourselves when necessary." As Veltash prepared to depart human space with the survivors of his fleet, he realized that everything the Confederation thought it knew about warfare, diplomacy and power had just been proven wrong. They had encountered a species that combined overwhelming military might with genuine compassion. It was a combi 3 months later. Admiral Kethvar sat in what humans called a detention facility, but felt more like a luxury resort. His quarters were spacious and comfortable, with a view of Earth's blue oceans through a large window. The food was excellent. The human guards were polite and helpful. He had access to an extensive library of human literature, music, and scientific texts. It was the most pleasant prison experience in Confederation history. Every day, Kethvar spent hours studying human culture and history. What he learned changed everything he thought he knew about intelligent life in the galaxy. The more he understood about humans, the more he realized how completely the Confederation had misunderstood them. Dr. Sarah Williams was the human researcher assigned to work with him. She was a specialist in something called xenopsychology, the study of how different species think and behave. She visited him every day to discuss what he was learning. "The thing that confuses me most," Kethvar told her during one of their sessions, "is how your people can be both gentle and deadly at the same time." Dr. Williams smiled. She had been patient with his questions for weeks. "That is not a contradiction for humans. We see them as related traits. How can gentleness and violence be related?" "Because true gentleness requires strength," she explained. "A weak species cannot choose to be gentle. They must fight for survival constantly. Only a strong species can afford to show mercy." Kethvar thought about this. In Zephyrian culture, strength meant the ability to defeat enemies. Gentleness was what weak species did when they could not fight back. The human concept was completely different. "Your people choose to be kind," he said slowly. "Exactly, and choice is what makes it meaningful." Dr. Williams showed him recordings of human history. He saw humans caring for injured animals that served no practical purpose. He watched them rescue enemies during wars, even when it put themselves at risk. He observed them spending enormous resources to save the lives of people they had never met. "But you are also capable of terrible violence," Kethvar observed. "Yes," Dr. Williams agreed sadly. "We learned to be very good at war because we had to. For thousands of years, humans fought each other constantly. We became expert at finding new ways to hurt and kill. What changed? We realized that our skill at violence could be used for protection instead of conquest. We could become strong enough that others would choose not to attack us." This was a completely new concept for Kethvar. The Confederation used military strength to force others to submit. Humans used military strength to create space for diplomacy. "Let me show you something," Dr. Williams said. She activated a display that showed human military doctrine. "Our entire defense strategy is based on making war too costly for potential enemies to consider." The human approach was brilliant in its simplicity. They had become so overwhelmingly powerful that attacking them was obviously suicidal. This gave them the freedom to be diplomatic and generous because no one would mistake their kindness for weakness. "You made yourselves too dangerous to attack," Kethvar realized, "and therefore safe enough to be peaceful," Dr. Williams confirmed. One day, Dr. Williams brought a special visitor to meet with Kethvar. The man introduced himself as Colonel James Murphy. the commanding officer of the facility that had destroyed Strike Group Beta. You were the mining facility manager, Kethvar said, recognizing the voice. Among other things, Murphy replied with a slight smile. I also run the defensive systems for this sector. Kethvar studied the human officer. Murphy looked completely ordinary. Medium height, brown hair, friendly face. Nothing about him suggested the deadly competence he had displayed during the battle. I do not understand, Kethvar said. You seemed genuinely concerned about your workers having families and children. Because they do have families and children, Murphy replied. 43 civilians work at that facility. 17 of them have kids. When you threatened to attack, you were threatening to harm innocent people. But the entire facility was a military installation. No, it was a mining facility with military capabilities. The miners really do extract ore from that asteroid. They just also happen to be trained soldiers who can defend themselves if necessary. This was another revelation for Kethvar. Human civilians were not helpless. They could transform from peaceful workers into deadly soldiers when threatened. The entire human population was potentially military personnel. How many of your people have combat training? He asked. Colonel Murphy and Dr. Williams exchanged glances. All of them, Murphy said finally. Every human receives basic military education. We hope they never need to use it, but we make sure they can defend themselves if necessary. Kethvar felt a chill run through his body. 50 billion humans across hundreds of worlds, all of them trained soldiers, all of them capable of fighting if their peaceful lives were threatened. Your entire species is a military force, he whispered. Our entire species values peace, Dr. Williams corrected gently, but we learned long ago that peace must be protected. During his final week in human custody, Kethvar was allowed to communicate with Confederation High Command. Supreme Commander Veltash had returned, home with the survivors of the Second Fleet. His report had caused panic throughout Confederation. Space. The High Command wants to know if humans plan to invade Confederation territory. Veltash told him during their conversation. Kethvar almost laughed. They have no interest in conquest. They could have destroyed both our fleets completely, but they chose to disable our ships and treat our wounded instead. Then what do they want? To be left alone. That is all they have ever wanted. And if we leave them alone, then they will continue to be the most peaceful species in the galaxy. As long as no one threatens them. On his last day in human custody, Kethvar met with Secretary General Santos one final time. She looked tired but satisfied as she signed the documents that would send him home. Admiral, she said, we hope this experience has been educational. More than you know, Kethvar replied. I came here believing humans were weak and naive. I learned that you are the strongest and wisest species I have ever encountered. We are just people trying to live good lives, Santos said. We wish the same for your people. What happens now? Now you go home and tell your leaders what you learned. We hope the Confederation will choose to establish peaceful relations with humanity. We would welcome trade, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation. And if the Confederation chooses war instead, Santos's expression became very serious. Then we will defend ourselves. We hope your people are wiser than that. As Kethvar's ship departed Earth orbit, he composed his final report to High Command. It was the most important document he had ever written. To Confederation High Command. From Admiral Kethvar. Subject. Recommendation regarding human contact. The human species represents the greatest military threat the Confederation has ever encountered. They possess technology centuries ahead of our own. Their population exceeds ours by a factor of 10 to 1. Every human civilian is a trained soldier. Their industrial capacity can produce warships faster than we can destroy them. However, humans also represent the greatest opportunity for peaceful cooperation in Confederation history. They are genuinely interested in trade, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation. They have no territorial ambitions beyond their current space. They prefer diplomatic solutions to all conflicts. My recommendation is immediate establishment of formal diplomatic relations. Offer full reparations for our unprovoked attack on their territory. Begin negotiations for trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Under no circumstances should any Confederation force ever again enter human space without explicit invitation. Any attempt to use military force against humanity would result in the complete destruction of our civilization. Humans are not our enemies unless we choose to make them so. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy precisely because they choose not to use their power for conquest. We should be grateful for their restraint and work to earn their friendship. Classification of humanity. Apex predator species. Approach with utmost caution and respect. Do not mistake their capacity for kindness as inability for violence. They are most dangerous when they choose to be gentle. Final note. Humans tried to warn us. They attempted to avoid this conflict through diplomacy. We forced them to demonstrate their capabilities. The responsibility for this disaster lies entirely with Confederation leadership who ignored clear warnings from a superior civilization. End report, Admiral. Kethavar submitted his report and waited to see if his people were wise enough to learn from their mistakes. He hoped they were, because he had seen what humans could do when they were forced to defend themselves, and he never wanted to see it again.